The food provided was of the rarest quality and was like concentrated essence. There was a creamy, golden liquid that seemed almost like liquid light. As we partook of it, I said to Rex, "You know, some unusually powerful experience must be about to take place, and we are given this liquid so the body will not be burdened with unnecessary substance." As we finished, a small crystal tumbler about the size of a wine glass appeared on the table before each, and with it came a slip of paper on which were the words, "Drink without fear." The substance in the glasses looked like pure electronic energy. I picked up my glass and drained it without stopping. At first it seemed as though my being would never stop expanding, and then came a sense of being lifted to tremendous heights. I thought I was going to lose consciousness, but I did not. I soon became adjusted to it, and then I looked at Rex and saw him standing in a flame of blazing light. His eyes were closed and his body swaying as though about to fall. I started towards him when the words flashed before me, "Have no fear." Presently, he opened his eyes, and as he looked at me, 2 rays of light streamed through them. It was an amazing experience, and it was fortunate indeed that we did not fear. In a moment, the bell sounded calling us to the crystal chamber. As we came to the large doors, they swung quietly open, and the most ravishing music greeted us. At the organ was seated the most beautiful, masterful presence I have ever seen or imagined, and another, its twin ray, sat at the piano. No words can possibly do justice to those harmonies, for the music reached into the very depths of one's soul. We were not aware anyone else was in the room until the music ceased, and then we realized that 10 of the ascended masters stood in our midst. Just beyond them were Nada and Pearl, enveloped in a brilliant light that extended around them for about 3 feet. Another glorious flood of music followed, and suddenly in the midst of it, we all turned towards the door. Our beloved Saint Germain and Daniel Rayburn entered with a beautiful lady master between them. As they came in, the music ceased, and Nada and Rex exclaimed, "Mother." The next instant both were clasped in her arms. In a few moments Rex came to where I stood, and putting his arm around me drew me to his mother saying, "This is our wonderful friend who came to us a few weeks ago. We could hardly love him more." "My dear son," said his mother, "I have observed much that has taken place, and I am quite as grateful as you for such a true friend to my loved ones. I join the family in the great love which they extend so sincerely. I see you reciprocate it radiantly. May God's choicest blessings, love, and illumination enfold you always." All came forward and extended greetings like one beautiful happy family. We suddenly felt an intense vibration, and looking up we saw the master who had been playing the organ floating near the ceiling above us. It really seemed as if we were in the etheric realms instead of in the heart of a mountain on the earth. Presently she stood on the floor beside us. We were presented to her as Daphne, the child of light. We met Ariane, her companion at the piano, and Saint Germain remarked that they were from the 7th sphere, having long ago reached the ascended state, completing their journey through human experience. Daphne and Ariane came directly up to Nada and Rex, a great inner attunement forming the bond between them. They asked if the children would sing to the accompaniment of the organ and piano. They replied in the affirmative, and Daphne asked Nada what they were going to sing. "Love's Light Eternal," she said. Rex and I wrote it. Daphne touched Nada's forehead a moment. "I have it," she said, and stepping to the instrument, began. The children's voices were splendid before, but now there was a new power and beauty that was wonderful. Even the ascended masters expressed their appreciation. Someone asked Nada's mother to sing, and from the moment she began, a thrill of joy filled every heart as she poured out her great love to bless all through the song. It surely was the glory of heaven poured out upon earth. It was at this point that Saint Germain asked us to come into the electrical laboratory. When we had assembled around the atomic accelerator, he requested each one who had not raised his body to follow in turn and take his place in the chair, beginning with Daniel Rayburn, Pearl, Rex, Nada and myself. The mighty IAM presence within each will tell you when to leave the chair, he instructed, as no word should be spoken while the Ra-1 SMG process is in operation. Daphne took her place facing the chair, and Saint Germain directly opposite. Rayburn seated himself, and a dazzling blue-white light blazed forth crystal clear. In perhaps 10 minutes, his flesh looked perfectly transparent. Slowly a current of vivid blue moved up his spine and met the combined currents of the pineal gland, pituitary body, and the base of the brain, forming into a dazzling golden light encircled by the most vivid blue I have ever seen. Then by the very power of his own light he arose and stepped forth from the chair, and as he did so, he seemed to float rather than walk. Pearl took her place in the chair. In less than 5 minutes her form completely disappeared, so dazzling was the white light. This lasted possibly 10 minutes before she emerged from it. As she stepped down from the chair, the light followed, as if to caress her. Next came Rex. At first there was a glow of soft rose light, gradually changing into gold, blue, and then an intense white, with a glorious tint of blue still remaining. His form did not entirely disappear from view, but in about 10 minutes he stepped down from the chair, his eyes ablaze with the light of the mighty I Am presence. Nada seated herself, and instantly the light became a dazzling sun, and her form completely disappeared within its wondrous glow. Presently she seemed to float, so lightly did she step from the chair, and rays of intense light continued to dart forth from the upper part of her body for some time. Lastly, I took my place. I felt a million points of light pierce my flesh as the greater force from within the electrons was released through the atomic structure. At first I wanted to jump right out of the body I was using and claim the full freedom of my mighty I Am presence. Soon I became adjusted to it, and then a feeling of the most joyous exaltation filled my entire being, a sensation no words can describe. I poured a mighty love to humanity and a prayer that all might be ready to receive this same glorious illumination, because no one can recede once he has entered into the light in this manner. In this tremendously exalted state I consciously sent forth the mighty power of divine love to bless and illumine humanity more powerfully than I had ever conceived possible. If 75% of mankind could understand, be raised to this marvelous state and consciously send forth the mighty power of divine love for 7 days, the earth and all its inhabitants would be transformed. There would be no more selfishness, hence no more strife. Would to God that day were at hand now. Our beloved Master asked us to return to the crystal chamber. We did so and found the exact number of chairs for those present placed so they faced the eastern wall of that wondrous room. Saint Germain stepped to a cord hanging upon the wall and pulled it. The wall covering drew apart and disclosed a polished surface about 12 by 20 feet. This, he explained, is a cosmic mirror in which any individual having reached a certain height of attainment may see his complete series of lives, the cause and effect of his conscious activity, and how the gradual process of mastery is attained. Then, seeing the divine plan of his future, he will understand how to cooperate with the great cosmic forward impulse, and so, tremendously increase his power of service and usefulness by consciously expanding the love, light, wisdom and power of the mighty I Am presence, through himself. 5 of the chairs had been placed directly in front of the center of the mirror. In these, Saint Germain seated Rayburn, Pearl, Rex, Nada, and myself, in the order mentioned. I ask you all to keep your eyes closed, he said, except the one whom I shall indicate to do the observing, and at no time allow yourselves to speak. I will speak the name of each one in turn as the preceding one finishes. I wish you, he said, indicating me, to follow the observation throughout, because you are here to observe and understand all that transpires so this knowledge may be given to the world. The others are here for their own individual growth. I am only permitted to chronicle fragments of the impersonal activities of what was revealed. As each one's name is pronounced, the Master instructed, he is to throw his own soul's light into the mirror, hold it there unwaveringly, and calmly observe the results, no matter what appears. Daniel Rayburn. Immediately a spot of sapphire blue light appeared upon the milky white surface of the mirror and steadily expanded until it became crystal clear. Then Saint Germain explained. Life after life appears, some in very great detail, others showing the terrific struggle of the outer self against the certain advance and expansion of the great inner light. This light is expanding perfection from the presence. This may be retarded, but never prevented from attaining its ultimate eternal victory and dominion. In some cases, century after century and life after life pass with but very little progress because of the stubbornness of the outer self. When it becomes weary enough of the husks of existence, the unreality of things, and earnestly and gladly calls to the mighty I Am presence, then all barriers disappear, and its great inner light is enabled to express more and more perfection. Thus at last is full mastery attained. The screen revealed Rayburn's experiences, including even those of his present life and our recent association. You see, he went on, an extension has been granted to this good brother until he has finished certain outer work and the children are through school. These extensions are only given where it is possible to raise the atomic structure of the physical body into the electronic. When this takes place, he will be united with his beautiful twin Ray, the mother of Rex and Nada. Then will they reveal their true service through the mighty, magic presence of the I Am, as their radiance grows brighter and brighter. At an appointed time they will come forth with their ascended master authority and serve in their visible tangible ascended bodies, holding positions as great teachers of the light in high governmental offices, being direct messengers of the Most High Living God. The surface of the mirror returned to white and Saint Germain said, "Pearl." A violet spot of light appeared, expanded, and covered the mirror with a wonderful radiance. The entire action was very different. Out of the many lives shown, there were only 3 in which the outer self rebelled against the light. Both masculine and feminine embodiments were revealed. Many times, she was a very earnest teacher of the truth to humanity. In one she was an eyewitness to the crucifixion of Jesus. In another she watched the burning at the stake of Joan of Arc. Then came her meeting and union with Rex, the final illumining and raising of their bodies, and the ministry that was to follow. It even showed them always in touch with their parents as beloved friends, no longer in the parental relationship. Again the light faded, the surface of the mirror became white, and Saint Germain said, "Rex." A disk of intense rose-colored light quickly covered the mirror, and a long series of lives followed. These gave also both masculine and feminine embodiments. In 3 of them he was a great teacher of the truth of life. Many times he was an officer of importance in large armies. In those, he was very active, especially during the time that the Greek civilization reached its apex. Another was shown in France and still another in England during the time of the American Revolution. Here the master called our attention to an unusual condition. Rex's growth, he said, has been so steady that he has had no very great struggle in any particular embodiment. This is a very rare thing when one considers the hundreds and sometimes thousands of embodiments that souls pass through in order to gain their eternal victory and dominion. In 3 consecutive lives he was a renowned scientist and made many remarkable discoveries that blessed mankind. We now come to his present life, which is just well started. Here is the close of his school days, his union with Pearl, and the call to go to the masters in the Himalayas and the Far East. This will cover a period of at least 2 years. Notice the marvelous, vivid description of certain work that he will do in the future, in which he will play a very prominent part in the government of America. Then with a flash, all vanished from the mirror, and Saint Germain said, "Nada." Almost instantly a light like a sun covered the mirror, and as it cleared, Saint Germain continued, "Here is a most remarkable revelation of hundreds of lives, the embodiments showing intense activity in which there seems always to have been a sincere dominant desire for the light. In the particular life now being revealed, it shows the meeting between Nada and Bob Singleton when they were together on Atlantis. At that time he was a nephew of one of the great master rulers. In another, Nada was a priestess in Egypt. In the one now being shown, she was a daughter of an Arab sheikh, and for many lives has been under my care and instruction. This is her present life, showing our meeting, her contact with Bob, and the sudden end of her schoolwork. She will take up definite cosmic work which Bob is not quite ready to do. Notice, as he awakens fully, the great light that blazes forth. Then they will become great teachers of divine wisdom. As you see, Bob will raise his body, as well as the others, with the assistance of the ascended masters. Their future work from the ascended state is beautiful indeed. Saint Germain next spoke my name. Instantly I threw my soul light upon the mirror, and a revolving light like a great diamond in the center quickly expanded to the outer rim. Far back in the past I saw my real self, the mighty magic presence of the great I Am, utilizing one body after another through a long series of lives. 2 of these were on Atlantis, one as an engineer of mining and aerial navigation. As the second came on the screen, he explained, in the last Atlantean embodiment, for the first time since going forth into incarnation, you came into contact with your twin ray. In Egypt, you were a secret teacher of the one God. In Rome, you were a centurion during the life and ministry of Jesus, closing that embodiment in what is now Great Britain again in England, during the 12th century, and the following life was in a feminine body in France. Now comes your present life, again in perfect union with your twin ray. This goes into the distant future, when in the great family of ascended masters you will still minister through divine love to those on earth, assisting in their upward progress. The blessing of divine service is a great privilege, but remember always, your first service, the greatest service that can possibly exist, is the complete acknowledgement and acceptance of your mighty I Am presence, the mighty light within and above you. I wish you all to remember especially what I am about to say on service, for it is one of the most misunderstood subjects. Many people consider various things as service which in reality are not service at all, but mere slavery to the human creation of themselves or others. The performance of physical acts for gratifying and satisfying of the limitations of the human self is not service, never was, and never will be. That is slavery to human creation and the treadmill of mankind's limitations. Please clear your minds once and for all time completely of that idea as a concept of service. I tell you frankly and truly, it is not. One of the ascended Lady Masters has said, the first service for any of mankind is praise and adoration of the God Self, the great Master within each individual. In thus fixing the attention of the outer mind on the only giver of anything good we can ever receive, it raises the outer mind into the full acceptance of the supreme conquering power anchored within the human form, which after all, is divine. If, in man's service to man, he fails to hold his attention fixed on the supreme source of love, wisdom and power, then he has failed in that service to a large degree. If, in the quest of things in the outer senses, he becomes so occupied that the conscious attention becomes fixed on the manifestation instead of the supreme presence that produces it, then again he has missed the mark. Again, if in man's great desire to serve, the overwhelming desire to serve his fellow man causes him to neglect to keep his attention fixed on the supreme producer, then that service too has failed to a large degree. The only true service is in holding the attention and acceptance so firmly fixed upon the great Master within, the only producer, that the outer mind becomes so filled with the inner presence, that naturally each activity of the day becomes, without considering it, the perfect divine service of the moment. Then the great Master within, the mighty I Am presence, is always conducting the outer activity, until the entire action becomes perfection expressed. The outer self, until fully awakened, has periods in which it unknowingly wants to strut its vanity and abilities over its fellowmen. This always invites a shock of some kind to shake up the outer self until it becomes aware of what it is doing. Then it wildly looks about for its source of power, which it has either forgotten or willfully pushed aside. For in our compulsory choice and the use of the free will, this great Master within will not intrude itself unless welcomed and invited joyously to do so. I say, joyously, because the more joy we can put into the acceptance of the mighty indwelling power, the quicker manifestation follows. Our acceptance is a command which must be obeyed. It cannot be denied. The attention and acceptance must be held long enough, firmly enough, and steadily enough upon the mighty I Am presence, until the shell of the outer self is completely shorn of the idea that it has any power of its own. The outer mind cannot argue against the fact that all the energy it uses comes from the great presence within, no matter how that energy is applied. Never let any desire for service deprive you of the needed time undivided to fix your attention and acceptance on your great Master within, knowing then that you will naturally give the right service and do the right thing. This is the law of true divine service, which says forever to the personal self, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." This is the whole of the law applied. The personal self has absolutely nothing of its own, for it comes into embodiment without even clothes, and unless the physical body is illumined and raised, it passes through so-called death and leaves even the body behind. So the personal self really owns nothing. It cannot deny the fact that all it has is loaned to it by the great Master presence, no matter how much it misuses the marvelous gifts of life. Keep your attention to the heights, the light, and the struggle of the outer self will soon cease. You will find yourselves steadily rising into that glorified ascended state where the joy of divine service so far transcends earthly comprehension there are no words to describe it. This discloses the revelations of individual growth through hundreds of lives in earthly experience. It is a rare occurrence and privilege for any student to be shown this, and it is only permitted where the individual has reached a height of attainment and inner strength that will enable him to observe the experiences of the past without receiving suggestions or being in the least influenced by them, no matter how terrific they may have been. Only a tiny fragment of all which passed upon that mirror is recorded here, for the experiences of one individual alone through hundreds of embodiments would fill many volumes. Saint Germain then drew the covering over the mirror, and taking his place in front of his guests, gave a most marvelous discourse. Much of it was private instruction and information for those present concerning their own work. I will give only a very small portion of it here. It is my wish, he said, addressing Pearl, Nada, and Rex, that Pearl return with Nada to her school. It is quite imperative at this time for her to take up certain studies which I will indicate for the year, until their graduation. This instruction concerning service was originally given forth by one of the Lady Masters, also known as Nada, who raised her body 2,700 years ago and who does very transcendent work for the humanity of this earth, as well as a greater work which she does in very much higher spheres. It was Saint Germain's request that it be put into the magic presence at this point, for he gives it to all his students and has placed it here that everyone who reads this book may have the benefit of her radiation as well as his own, and profit thereby. End of that time I shall be very happy to have you accompany me to the Far East, where you are to remain for 2 years and make certain contacts which it is necessary for you to have. At that time, Bob will be ready to go with you. I will see that dependable men are brought to the mine and ranch. 1 year from today, July 28, 1931, we shall all meet again in the Cave of Symbols, and Daniel Rayburn will complete the raising into his electronic body and enter perfect freedom with his beloved twin ray, Nada, the child of song. Each of you will receive training and instruction from time to time as you require it, and this will be your path to freedom. You all know there is but one source to look to for anything, and that is your mighty I Am presence, within and around you, to whom you can call and you will never fail to get a response. From it, you may receive without limit courage, strength, power, protection, and guidance which will take you through any ordeal you may ever encounter. I have not observed any weakness within you, otherwise you would not be here. Trials will arise from most unexpected places. You will, of course, remember that the sincere student is never off guard. The inner light will never fail unless you deliberately turn from it, a thing I trust none of you will ever do. Now will you join me around the crystal table? We still have another service to render our beloved brother Bob. When all were in their places, he asked Nada to call Bob with the inner light. In about 10 minutes he stood on the table before us. Rex extended his hand, and Bob stepped lightly down and clasped Nada in his arms. She led him forward and presented Bob to her mother, who had returned to the audience chamber with Daniel Rayburn. She looked at him steadily for a moment, and with the sweetest smile held out her arms and embraced him. As she did so the light within her blazed forth with such intensity that their bodies were hardly visible. "My beloved son, in whom I am well pleased," she said, releasing him. "I congratulate you both on this discovery and the love that enshrines your 89 divine union. The greatest blessing my power of the ascended state can give enfolds you both forever. Always remember that pure, unselfish love and devotion form the open pathway to the ascended state." Nada asked Daphne and Ariane to play again, and they assented. When they took their places at the organ and piano, a dazzling light floated above them near the ceiling. As they struck the first chords of a beautiful melody, a glorious tenor voice burst forth from within the light. The control of the voice was perfect, its range seemed to be almost without limit. Here we were listening to a being we did not see, yet whose voice was the most magnificent proof of the presence, and its great gifts to mankind. When the first song was finished, the organ, piano, and voice all modulated into America. Instantly everyone arose, not only in tribute to America, but to the great master whose wondrous voice thrilled us all. "America," said Saint Germain, means so much more than most of her inhabitants dare to dream, for she is the heart center of the spiritual progress on this planet. It is in America that the firm foundation of the cosmic Christ, the mighty I Am presence, will find anchor in the hearts of mankind. This great, all-powerful light shall intensify and expand until not a vestige of selfishness or political intrigue will remain or be remembered. Many amazing things will take place in the coming years, until mankind will truly realize the time of miracles is not past, but is forever with us. We will then understand they are but the results of obedience to the great divine plan of life. We are just beginning to enter an age of so-called miracles which will reveal the glories, the magic presence, holds waiting for its children. America is the Grail, the cup for this earth that carries the light of the cosmic Christ which shall illumine the earth and set it in divine order by the power of the mighty I Am presence. Bob was so happy, he asked if he might be permitted to meet our beloved Master in the visible, tangible body before the school season opened, and Saint Germain replied, "It may be sooner than you expect, for your blessed friends will be at the mine shortly, and I will meet with you all at that time, let us say the 10th of August. Now, Bob, you must return to your physical body." Instantly the two radiant masters stood on each side of him. Bob said good night to his sweetheart and those present, and they immediately disappeared. The rest of us gathered around Nada, the mother, who embraced each of her loved ones. "It is time we must part," she said, "but on this occasion it is in joyous rapture instead of sorrow, as at our first parting. I wish you to return to your chambers," Saint Germain directed, "and rest until 2 o'clock tomorrow, and then return home. Proper food will be served when you are ready. It is my privilege to escort this beloved child of song," indicating Rex and Nada's mother, "to the sphere where she is sojourning." We watched them closely and saw the two forms begin to fade from view, and in about 3 minutes they completely disappeared. Such is the power of the Ascended Master to come and go in the tangible body and make it visible or invisible at will. In the intense interest of watching Nada's mother and our beloved Master disappear, we did not notice that the other Ascended Masters had gone also, leaving only Daniel Rayburn, Pearl, Nada, Rex and myself. As we looked at each other, I do not think there was a dry eye in the whole group, for tears of the greatest gratitude and joy we had ever known filled our eyes and hearts to overflowing. We returned to our chambers and found the most appetizing dinner awaiting us. There was a delicious nut loaf, an amber liquid, wonderfully refreshing, and a combination salad made of things we had never eaten before. As we lay down, the brilliant light in the room gently faded out until only a soft bluish-white radiance like moonlight remained. Unless one has experienced something of this kind, it is not possible to describe the feeling of rest and quiet such light conveys. The next thing we knew, we heard the etheric bell sound through our chambers, and when I looked at my watch I saw it was 1 o'clock. We put on our robes and sat down to the small crystal table in our room, laden with luscious fruits, among them peaches and strawberries such as I have never seen in the outer world. There was a substance like heavy whipped cream for the fruit, and every spoonful sent an electric charge through the body that gave one the feeling of strength, courage, power and confidence which it is impossible to explain. As we finished our repast, a slip of paper asking us to come to the crystal chamber at once floated down to the table. The great doors opened at our approach, and as we entered, Saint Germain and the others who had already arrived greeted us. "Our work here is finished for the present," he said, as soon as we were seated, "for you have each leapt ahead in growth very rapidly because of previous attainment of which you are entirely unaware. Now you shall return to the ordinary routine and activity in the outer world, but you are no longer of it. Never again will the vibratory action of your minds and bodies be lowered to the point where they were before you entered the Cave of Symbols 3 days ago. Your friends will see and feel the change, but will not know its cause. They will always be restrained from asking personal questions. You may now wear your clothes of the outer world, but always keep your robes, as they are for your meditation and communion with the Ascended Masters. I have my own way of keeping in constant touch with you. If you will come with me as soon as you are ready, I will take you to the opening of the cave, as I must be in the Far East at 5 o'clock this afternoon. Henceforth, we are never separated." We returned in our hiking clothes, and Saint Germain led us to the entrance. We tried to express our gratitude, but he raised his hand for silence and said, In the future let us refrain from attempting to express what is already known to the others. We, I trust, have gone beyond the need of human conventions. I know the great love and gratitude in your hearts. My own love and gratitude are just as great as yours that you have found the way into eternal light, freedom, and perfection. That I have been privileged to be of assistance is my sufficient reward. All is at the command of, the magic presence, within you the, mighty I Am presence, of the universe. As he ceased speaking, his body grew less dense, became dim of outline, and finally disappeared completely before our very eyes. Our love and gratitude to beloved Saint Germain is boundless and eternal. Obedience to his slightest request is a command to us and a joy forever. He has helped mankind so continuously through the centuries that all in this world should give him every possible cooperation.